So today we're going to be talking about detoxification, and this is such a broad topic, and everyone talks about detox. We have all these detox juices, everything is detox shower gel. So it became a very broad subject, and people use this word very easily nowadays. So I wanted to clear things up a little bit when it comes to detoxification, so people understand actually how this detoxification works and how to do it properly. Detoxification is such a complex process, and we need to be very careful when we use the word and actually how to go through this process. So we need to understand, first of all, what the toxins are, because like detoxify means to get rid of the toxins, right? Then there are so many types of toxins that we need to be able to detoxify in order to do a complete, to fulfill a complete detoxification process. So when we talk about toxins, we need to understand there is two types of toxins. There is the internal toxins, so I call it the danger from within, and all the toxins that our body produces naturally, yes, because it does. And these are the microbial compounds from bacteria, yeast, or other organisms. And they all produce the waste products or other metabolic byproducts who actually interfere with so many body functions, and they increase to a lot of inflammation and oxidative stress. So these are toxins, these internal toxins that our body produces naturally. And then there's also the toxins that internally who come from the breakdown of products of natural protein metabolism, which is like urea and ammonia. So we need to consider firstly the internal toxins that our body produces naturally, and to think how to minimize and reduce that, and then the whole outside toxin, the external toxins. So we have the internal toxins and then the external toxins, which are the environmental toxins and the toxins in our diet. And there's a lot to talk about that too. And then environmental toxins, unfortunately, we live in a society that we are bombarded of these environmental toxins. They are everywhere, especially in the big cities. And most of us, all the hustlers, want to make it in life. We live in big cities. So we need to take that into consideration, that we are bombarded every day with all type of toxins, chemical toxins, heavy metal toxins, who disrupt the key mechanism involved in so many hormonal processes in our body. So when we talk about chemical toxins and heavy metal toxins, this is like a really big thing, and then it takes quite a long time to detoxify them properly, and there are so many ways to do this correctly, and I would highly suggest to do it with a certified practitioner, a good physician who understands how to do this properly, especially the heavy metals, all this chelation, which is detoxifying the heavy metals for our body. It's a very it's a process that takes out a lot of our body if we don't do it properly. So if you choose to do it with a good physician, make sure you ask them the way they do it. I highly recommend you do a very slow process of detoxifying the heavy metals, which is a really big thing. People do not understand the importance of getting rid of these chemicals and metals from our body, and they don't even actually test for it. And most of the time, all the Parkinson, Alzheimer, and so many other metabolic diseases, they will have as a first base overload of heavy metals, and it's a really big thing. Thyroid as well. Most of the thyroid issues are highly related to mercury toxicity. So I went a little bit too deep into that. This is like a whole new thing that I should talk in another podcast. But I want to amplify this because it's actually very important. Then we have all the chemical toxins from the volatile organic compounds or the solvents, or medication or alcohol or all the pesticides and food additives, which are everywhere, and we eat them all day long from all these like food chains, food like fast food, or even these like healthy ones. They still use lots of food additives. I also want to tell you guys that the fatter you are, the more toxic you will be. Because where do the toxins store? The toxins, they actually do store in the adipose tissue. So the more fat you have on your body, the more toxic you will become. So that's why learning to avoid toxins and to be able to detoxify for weight loss will prevent weight gain. So the fatter you are, the more toxic you are, the more depressed ultimately you will be. It's just everything linked, and it's a constant roller coaster, and you need to be able to know where to, cut things short and start improving your life. Let's talk a little bit about the toxins in your diet, because this is really, really big and everyone knows it, but it seems like people actually do not care about it. So the most the worst toxin in our diet, and I heard someone saying was that this is an addiction also, and it's like more addictive than cocaine, is the sugar and the high fructose corn syrup. And we all heard about it, but we do not avoid it. But the sugar itself and the high fructose corn syrup are the two most important causes of elevated liver function, and like liver disease and cardiovascular risk, etc., high blood pressure. Then the trans fatty acids. Oh my goodness, what is worse than that? Just stay away from it. We do not want to eat anything fried. This is a killer. It's a huge toxin for our diet. Salt is like same like sugar. It's a like big controversy. We need salt. We need the right type of salt, the right amount of salt to function optimally. But unfortunately, the excess of salt, it becomes a toxin. So when we talk about toxin, actually, it is the dose that makes the toxin. Because if you have a small amount of anything, will not even make the difference, more or less. But the higher amount of sugar, the higher amount of salt you're going to put into your body will become very, very toxic. When we talk about salts, make sure you only use sea salt. I like my Himalayan sea salt, which is very healthy, and it's got all the electrolytes, and it's highly advisable to be used in your food. Alcohol, caffeine, we all know that excess of them, it is a toxin, and I don't even need to go into this. Well, I remember a couple of years ago, I had 3 coffees in a day. And I went into a terrible panic attack and anxiety because of the overload of caffeine. And it was horrible. So then I understood that coffee is not good for me. I did my food intolerance test again after a year. And I realized that I was highly intolerant to coffee. So my body couldn't cope with caffeine. At the moment, I have a coffee there and there, but I'm still being very careful because I know that my body doesn't do good on caffeine. I prefer to have green tea or other things that help more. And at the same time, I realized that it's a burden for my adrenals, so I stayed away for it for at least 6 to 8 weeks. Then I slowly reintroduced to see how my body reacted. I reacted better, but still I do not recommend to myself. So our body is unique, and we all, have our thresholds when it comes to all the stimulants. So we need to be very, very careful. Then we have all the genetically modified foods, all these like various plastics, pathogens, hormones, and all the antibiotics that are found in food. And we do not even consider them, and they're everywhere because most of people are lazy now to cook from scratch, and I'm so against that. And they go and they buy a half-prepared meal, and they put in the oven or they just fry it, and there's so many additives and plastics and genetically modified ingredients in that. Even the meat nowadays, if you do not buy organic meat, we will encounter a high amount of hormones. Meat must be organic. I didn't really care that much in the past, but now, ever since I'm eating organic meat, and I also decreased my meat intake anyway, my body makes the difference straight away. Like my brain, it's clear. I don't have that foggy brain. I don't get any bloated. I function so much better. My energy levels are so much better. So I can definitely make the difference between an organic meat, which is raised in a good environment with no hormones and no other various pathogens, and a meat that's just been like raised overnight and injected with hormones, etc., etc. So stay away of that. It's really bad. I would even advise just go vegan. Even though before I wouldn't be a big fan of vegan diet, these days I actually saw the way the animals are raised, and no. And then obviously part of the toxins in our diets, there are all these allergens, the common allergens such as gluten, dairy, eggs, sometimes soy, stay away from soy, corn, and yeast. So I saw how much gluten affects our bodies, and even if I can tolerate it to a certain degree, I still prefer to stay away from gluten and dairy products. Dairy, I'm highly intolerant to dairy. I don't even have the gene that breaks down lactose, so I know that, so I'm being very, very careful. So if you can stay away from these toxins, even if you tolerate them pretty well, I would highly advise that. However, you do not want to desensitize your body completely from these antibodies. So maybe once a week or every 2 weeks, if you tolerate them, you can add them to your diet. But again, too much of them will be a toxin.
Thank you all for watching ProBody Talks. We will be bringing you more guests in my upcoming episodes. Great inspirational human beings, so stay tuned. We have a lot of valuable information that I hope will inspire you all. In the meantime, you can support us by subscribing to my Patreon account. Thank you and goodbye, everyone.